Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy. I feel like with this shirt when I go outside, since these flowers are so big and colorful, a bee will mistake me for an actual flower and then they'll try to pollinate me. So today's topic is on anxiety. Well, what is anxiety? Anxiety is feeling nervous, worried, or unease about an event or an uncertain outcome. So the way your brain works is your conscious mind, which is what you're aware of currently, what you're thinking about currently, what's in front of you currently. And then you have your subconscious mind, which is your feelings, your beliefs, your memories, and your fears. That's where the anxiety comes from, that part of your mind. Anxiety can start when you're young, as a kid or as a teen, or it can start as an adult because you had a certain event that has then triggered that anxiety to come out. I personally have struggled with anxiety since I was 6. I think that my cause of anxiety was seeing my grandma's death. It caused a lot of trauma and just my family broke apart and just there was a lot of issues after that. I developed just fear of death in general, and then overall just anxiety. Everything stressed me out. I thought worst case scenario, I would overthink everything.
Growing up, I didn't have anyone to talk to about my anxiety, so I would be having typical anxiety but be stuck in my head, which would cause me to be irritable and irritated. So if you see me on the street and I'm irritable, I'm probably having anxiety, and if you're like me, welcome to the family. We're related.
Anxiety is partially genetics, partially environmental. So if you have family members that suffer with anxiety, that's partially why you now have anxiety, as well as environmental. So if you see your parents worry, since worrying is a learned behavior, you may then start to be a worrier. Or you see them act a certain way where they have anxiety, like anxiousness about spiders, you may then take on that anxiety. Or it comes from trauma or past events that have really affected you in a negative way that can also then cause you to have anxiety. If you think back to your past, you may have noticed there was a certain event or you saw your parents act in a particular way that has then caused you to be that way. So if you have had negative or traumatic experiences, that then can cause you to have constant anxiety about particular things, or just overall anxiety where you think worst case scenario, you think black and white thinking, which means you think it's either all bad or all good. There's no gray area. You have a hard time thinking in the middle. You will have a lot of what if thoughts, like what if this happens, or what if it's actually this. So with anxiety, what happens is you get a thought, you get a scary thought. What if nobody likes me? What if I eat this thing and it makes me sick? What if I lose my job? What if I fail? So it starts with that anxious thought. And then what usually happens is you will entertain that thought. So you will continuously think about that scenario. So you're imagining it as it actually happening. And I call it a snowflake. The first anxious thought is a snowflake. And then what happens is more snowflakes come, more of those scary thoughts come, until all of a sudden, all those snowflakes, all those thoughts become a huge, big snowball avalanche, and you're running for your life. And that's when all of those symptoms will come. You will start getting an anxious thought, and then you will get a symptom. Maybe your stomach hurts. Oh no, here it starts. Then you may think about what may happen next. Like, oh no, I know what's gonna happen next. My fingers are gonna go numb. Because sometimes we will have anxiety about our anxiety. We may try to control it, like we may try to suppress it, like don't think about it. Or we will try to fight the anxiety, like no, this isn't happening. I'm not dealing with this. Oh no, this can't happen again. Oh no, here we go. And it will cause you to still spiral because you are fighting it and the thoughts are coming back 10 times harder. And it then causes you to have more anxious thoughts and feel more anxiety and have more symptoms like heart palpitations, and you feel like you're struggling to breathe and you feel like you're hyperventilating. You're like, I can't breathe. You'll feel like you're hyperventilating. All those things will pop up. And then all of a sudden you feel like you're dead, like you're in complete danger. Because when you're thinking about that scary thought, it feels so real, your fight or flight's going off, and your body's like, okay, we're in this dangerous situation, because you have imagined you're in this dangerous situation, and your body's like, okay, we need to fight this or flight this. And that's why all those symptoms will come about, and you'll have a hard time breathing, and you'll feel like you need to get out of there. You genuinely feel like you're in danger. Then you may start to fear anxiety and fear feeling out of control, because that's what happens with anxiety. It can make you feel very out of control. And it may even happen out of the blue. Some people, they'll get symptoms where it starts with a thought, like something really bad's gonna happen. That happens to me all the time. Nothing will be going on, like I'll be minding my business, and all of a sudden, like I'll get this feeling, like this dreaded feeling, and my anxiety will be like, something really bad's gonna happen. I'm like, oh great, like what bad's gonna happen? I gotta watch out. But mainly what's happening is if you're getting thoughts like something bad's gonna happen, that may be just your childhood trauma coming out of just because you've dealt with things in the past where bad things happen, so you're on the lookout. That is your childhood trauma response from your subconscious coming to your conscious. It's basically like a habit where in your past you always maybe felt like you needed to protect yourself, and you would have these feelings like something bad's gonna happen, so nothing may be going on, and then all of a sudden that feeling will come. So with anxiety, you want to first recognize that it's an anxious thought. It can be hard because when you're so afraid, we want to continuously think about that fear in order to protect us, like how we'll handle it, or we really firmly believe that it's happening, so we feel like we need to do something about it. So it's really important you tell yourself, like, this is anxiety. I know this is anxiety. I've dealt with this before. This is my anxious thought. And the thing with anxiety is that's not who you really are. Anxiety is your fear response. You are not your fear response. Your anxiety is your negative thoughts. Your anxiety is like maybe your parents' thoughts, or that negative self, the one that has been through negative experiences and is scared. Your genuine self is your positive self. That's the one that encourages you. That's the one that embraces positivity. That's the one that empowers you. That's the self that you want to come through when you are having extreme amounts of anxiety. With anxieties, it starts with a thought. Like I had mentioned, you can't control the thoughts that come, but you can control the thoughts that you entertain. So like I mentioned, with anxiety, you will entertain all of those thoughts. And your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So when you are imagining all of these things, your brain is taking it as if it's actually happening. So you feel like everyone's out to get you. You feel like people don't love you. You feel like you're already in danger and the worst is yet to come, because your mind has made it a reality. So you go about this world like as if it's actually happening. That's why when you remind yourself, it's just a thought. It's not actually what's happening right now. I don't have any proof that these things are happening. These are thoughts in my mind. It will help you to stop it before it spirals, before you're having all of those symptoms. And what you need to do is you need to replace that thought. Because it can't just be like, oh yeah, it's a thought, whatever. It doesn't matter, because that's not how it works. That's not how anxiety works. You need to acknowledge that it's a thought and disassociate it and say, that's just my anxiety voice. That's my anxiety. That's my parents' voice. That is my ego. That's not me. Me is the positive person. I'm the one that wants to do better. I'm the one that wants positive things in my life. If you disassociate it, you will better be able to make decisions for yourself and recognize that anxiety is not your reality. You are your reality. Your positive self is your reality. With anxiety, you are choosing to believe a fear-based thought. You don't want to believe that fearful thought. With anxiety, you want to change what you believe, and you don't want to believe that anxious thought. You don't want to go about your life acting like that your anxiety is you, because it's not you. It's a belief that you have held on to for so long, and you want to let it go. And that's why you want to retrain your brain to not believe your anxious thoughts, but to be aware of your anxious thoughts, be in the moment. And when you are noticing yourself having those anxious thoughts, instead of believing it, you are replacing that thought with self-soothing and reminding yourself that this is your anxiety and you've been here before and you can get through it and you're going to get through it. And choose to believe that that anxious thought isn't true. Replace that thought with what you genuinely want to happen, what you want to believe. You want to believe that you're going to succeed. You want to believe that things are going to be okay. So make sure you are imagining that everything's going to be okay rather than imagining everything's falling apart. So with anxiety, like I had mentioned, you may try to fight it. You may be very afraid of it. You may get all these types of symptoms. You feel out of control. The thing with anxiety is it's important you don't fight it, because it's kind of similar when you tell yourself not to think of white polar bears. You will then continuously think of white polar bears. So what you're doing is you're trying to prevent something from happening where you don't necessarily have that control of it happening at that moment. Because you cannot control if you have an anxious thought. That's the only thing that you can't control. You can't control the thoughts that come, but you can control the thoughts you entertain. So what that means is that when you have those anxious thoughts, you have the power to remind yourself it's a thought. Because when you do get those anxious thoughts, you are imagining it happening. And as I always talk about, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So when you are imagining it actually happening, your body genuinely feels like it's happening. So that's why it may be hard when you're having those anxious thoughts, you start to spiral. But it's important you embrace that anxiety, because anxiety can be a sign that things are not working for you. It can actually be a signal that you need a change in your life. Especially if anxiety comes out of nowhere when you start a new job, or you're in a relationship where you just all of a sudden developed anxiety. That's your body's way of saying like, hey, pay attention to me. You're not paying attention to your mental health, so I'm gonna make you physically sick so that way we can do something about it. Take anxiety as that you need a change. You need something different in your life. It's a sign that things are not working for you, whatever you're doing. When you are having anxiety, those are the times when you want to be the most nurturing towards yourself. Those are the times when you want to work on reparenting yourself. So if you as a kid, when you had anxiety, you didn't really have a lot of support or you didn't really have coping mechanisms, these are the times to help you to reparent yourself and give you those tools that you didn't have as a young kid, or you didn't have that emotional support as a young kid. You want to give yourself that emotional support, and you want to tell yourself that everything's going to be okay. You want to tell yourself that you got you. You want to give yourself love. If you've ever felt nurtured before, or if you were the person that always is taking care of everyone, you need to give that same sort of support and same sort of care towards yourself. Challenging yourself is really helpful as well. Challenging those thoughts. Like, do I have proof of this happening? Also reminding yourself, like, is this my reality? Is this something that's happening in front of me? Or is this something that my anxiety is telling me is going to happen? Now, there are moments, like for instance, panic attacks, where sometimes we don't catch the thought immediately. And sometimes it can be addicting, where we continuously feed that thought, because it can be a coping mechanism where we think that we need to feed that thought to protect ourselves. So what works is grounding techniques. With panic attacks, my personal view, I don't have scientific evidence, but this is my personal view, I think panic attacks are your subconscious mind trying to bring to light of what's going on. Like, so you are repressing your emotions and your subconscious is like, face me, face me, face me. So that's why you'll notice, like, if you deal with panic attacks, which is you're not usually having any type of thought, it doesn't start with an anxious thought, it's just, it comes out of the blue. Like, you'll be driving, mind your business, and all of a sudden, like, your chest will get really tight, or you can't breathe, or your fingers will go numb, or maybe even sometimes people's visions go black. Like, it can be very scary symptoms. What that is I feel like it's an overload of your body just being overloaded with everything going on in your life that you're not paying attention to. So something that can help when it comes to panic attacks, or when you're in an anxiety attack, is to do grounding techniques. That's first what you need to do. Like I mentioned, it first starts with a thought, and sometimes you can't just stop that thought. You can't stop it midway, because you're already in that place where you feel out of control. You've already imagined the scenario and you're dead. You imagined it, you're dead. You imagine all these bad things are happening. Everyone's looking at you, everyone's judging you. You already imagined that situation. So your brain thinks it's reality. So you already feel like that fantasy is your reality. So sometimes you can't get out of it. So there's a couple grounding techniques that can help you immediately out of those situations. One is to practice mindfulness. So you focus on right now, what's in front of you. I have 5 fingers. My hand is red. There's a blue thing over there, like just things like that, just paying attention to now and just saying that over and over again. That's one grounding technique. Another one I have actually seen recently is eating a lemon. I've seen some people where I say when they eat a lemon, like it's sensory overload, like your brain can't have anxiety and you can't taste the lemon at the same time. So the lemon sourness will overcome it and will ground you again and will bring you back to reality. Also, like things like dipping your hands in ice water, breathing, focusing on your breathing. Some people, they can't do that because they already feel like they're hyperventilating and they say, I can't breathe. So it may help to just try to like be in the present, or doing the technique where you list 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you can taste. That will bring you immediately back to what's going on right now because you're focusing on your surroundings. So try to invest grounding techniques when you're having panic attacks. Grounding techniques are techniques that help you from when you are not in reality, when you are stuck in your head, in your imagination, imagining worst case scenario. It helps you to come back to present day, coming back to reality. Because a lot of times with anxiety, we can get very stuck in our head and we are not in the present moment. And grounding techniques help you to come back into the present moment. And that's what you want to do with anxiety, is you want to try to help yourself be in the present moment as much as possible, because it can become a habit where you get very stuck in your head and your imagination and imagining all these things happening. Another thing that's really important is to be aware of your triggers. So there may be certain times or certain things, like on certain things, uncertainty is a big trigger for a lot of people. When your anxiety will spike up more, you'll have more of those anxious thoughts. You'll have more of those thoughts of, oh no, something really bad's gonna happen. Those are the times when you need your positive voice to come in and remind yourself that is just your anxiety. So being aware of those triggers, as well as understanding where your anxiety comes from. So did it come from a traumatic event? Did it start in your childhood? Did it start from a relationship? Is it because you first started working at a job? When you can pinpoint when your anxiety started, that can help you recognize like, oh, maybe this is triggering me and I need a change of job. Oh, maybe I need to get out of this relationship. Maybe it's showing that I'm around unhealthy people. So recognize those triggers and understand those are the times when you're gonna need the extra self-soothing. Those are the times when you're gonna need the extra support. Those are the times that you're gonna need to be extra cautious and understand like, this is my anxiety. And also, I may need to change my situation because it's not working out for me. So the way you handle your anxiety is 1, recognize when you're having that anxious thought immediately. It's really important you recognize it immediately and you nip it in the bud when it happens, is because when you don't, it just starts to spiral. And then you're in that attack where you feel like you can't get out of it or you need someone else's help. So first step is to recognize when you're having that anxious thought. The next thing is to remind yourself, this is an anxious thought. I am my positive self and my anxiety is my anxiety. You want to disassociate it because it's much easier to remind yourself that your anxiety is not necessarily a reality. It feels like it. It feels so real. It is real. This is how it feels. But you understanding that it's something your brain has concocted in your mind, it will help you to better be able to cope with it. Also, embracing your anxiety rather than fighting it and like having a boxing match and your anxiety winds up winning in the end. So that's why it's important to embrace it. Acknowledge, this is my anxiety again. This is my anxiety attack. The symptoms are gonna come, but I know I'm gonna be okay because I've been okay each time I've went through this. I got this. and you coach yourself through it, and you self-soothe, and you tell yourself it's gonna be okay. I know that I'm confident. Even if you don't feel that in that moment, you need to say those things to yourself and empower yourself, saying empowering things. And you may notice the more you do this, the less the anxiety attacks will happen and the less aggressive they'll be. Because you may be at a point where your anxiety is so aggressive, you feel so out of control, the anxiety attacks are extreme, and you're trying to fight it. Like, oh no, this can't happen. You may start to build up. You're like, okay, this is gonna happen next, and I'm gonna deal with this next. And you're so focused on your anxiety that you're making it happen worse. If you do happen to spiral, you are having a panic attack, use those grounding techniques to bring you back. Sometimes you may need help from others, but it's important that you don't just use others as a crutch. It's just like sometimes, like when you're really out of control, you ask for that help, and other times you like tell yourself, like, I got this, I can handle this, I've been through this before. I'm a bad boss, I got this. I was gonna say a bad bee, but sometimes people get offended by bad words. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you ever dealt with anxiety or been around someone that has a lot of anxiety? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share to someone that may need to hear it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. Come and try to like pollinate me because these flowers are big and I don't know what I'm saying. Not sure if that's actually how you use that word, but we'll just pretend. Well, what is anxiety? Okay, shh, get to it. Okay, why am I having such a fun? Okay, shh, okay. You got this. You got this. Anxiety is feeling of, okay. Feels like freaking the end of the world. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Redo. Okay. The way? No, it's okay. I'm just filming a video. It's not a problem. It's fine. I don't like that one either. This is what happens when you're a perfectionist.